The Deathworm was a creature I was going to put off making a video about, because it's clearly fictional and researching the legends behind large desert-dwelling worms didn't really appeal. But then this article from the New York Times popped up in my news feed, so I guess it's time to find out quite how wild nature actually is. The ARK wiki lists the Deathworm as a fantasy creature, and although that is true, there's also some pretty solid history behind it. Researching this creature has taken me on a strange journey, from D&D campaigns to ancient Mongolian legends to scientific papers on worms that lived 300 million years before the dinosaurs. We'll start with the fiction and then we'll move on to the fact. Helena's dossier names the Deathworm Korkoi Arrakis. Arrakis means dancer, and it is also the name of the most important planet in the Dune universe. This planet is also home to the giant sandworms, but that's not the part of the name that we're actually interested in. Korkoi is the part that starts us on our adventure. Orgoi Korkoi is the name given to a creature also known as the Mongolian Deathworm. It has been researched by both cryptozoologists and credited academics. The name means large intestine worm, and it is a creature that is alleged to exist in the Gobi Desert. It is described as being shaped like a sausage and about 2 feet long with no head or legs. Other sources describe it as a scarlet red worm that looks like a cow's intestine, that can be between 60 centimetres and 1.5 metres long and as thick as a forearm. It is said that it is difficult to distinguish between its head and its tail because there are no visible eyes or mouth. Some accounts also say that it has spines on each end. No interaction with the Mongolian Deathworm ends well. Some say that it spits sulfuric acid and that a single drop can turn metal rusty and kill a human. Some say that it can kill from a distance thanks to electric discharges, and others say that simply touching the worm results in instant death. Much like the in-game Deathworm, Orgoi Korkoi lives underground, but this legendary version hibernates for 10 months of the year, only appearing above ground during June and July. In the dossier, Helena states that the Deathworm shares similarities with Eunis aphroditois and what a treat this creature is. This is an existing benthitic bristleworm that can be found in warm areas of the Atlantic Ocean and some areas of the Indo-Pacific. Also known as the Bobbit Worm, it exists today and is a species of ambush predator that hunts by burrowing into the sediment of the ocean floor and waiting for its antennae to detect prey. It then strikes with its sharp mouth parts. They range in length from 10 centimetres to 3 metres long, but despite the great lengths they can achieve, their bodies are slim, normally only about 2.5 centimetres wide. Bobbit worms can live in some of the most extreme conditions on Earth. You can find them lurking in the darkest depths of the underwater world, although they prefer stony coral reefs and warm marine waters. Like other ambush predators, the Bobbit worm relies on speed, stealth, and patience. When something passes close enough for its antennae to detect it, it lurches forward like a coiled spring. Their jaw often snaps shut with enough force to cut their prey in half. But how does the Bobbit worm eat the prey it's just killed? I am so glad you asked. It has a muscular, tooth-studded throat lining that it can turn inside out and thrust out of its mouth to engulf its prey. If you're not already creeped out enough, then you should also know that they are venomous. And although it doesn't produce enough toxin to kill a human, people have reported that they give a nasty sting and can leave the skin permanently numb afterwards. Bobbit worms aren't anything new. The earliest fossil records place the evolution of this type of worm within the Ordovician period, some 400 million years ago. They were first described and named in 1788 from a specimen that was collected in Sri Lanka. Why the zoologist decided to name this particular species of worm after the Greek goddess of love remains a mystery. If you're curious about how it got named the Bobbit worm, then with a parental advisory warning, I suggest you go and look up the story of Lorena Bobbit. And because one super aggressive, super creepy looking worm that actually exists isn't enough, let's take a quick look at the worm in the article I shared right at the beginning of this video. Selkirkia are a type of worm that lived inside long, cone-shaped tubes and was some of the most common predators on the seafloor 500 million years ago. The tubes could reach 6 centimetres in length and were made out of a secretion from the worm. Their bodies were covered in a series of spines along its length, and it also had small body extensions called papillae, which were probably used to help anchor the worm inside its tube. It is thought that they were probably only capable of limited movement, and would have spent most of their time buried vertically or at an angle in the sediment, waiting to trap any live prey that happened to swim past. To quote Dr. Naglu, who's been researching Selkirkia worms, "No matter how wild the thing you see on a screen is, I guarantee that there is something in nature, even if it's been extinct for a long time, that's way wilder." And I think she's probably right. The Deathworm in-game can make a formidable foe, and one that deserves to share a name with the legendary Olgoi Korkoi, but the real-world counterparts are no less impressive. Predatory worms have existed for longer than is imaginable, and evolved into efficient hunters within their environment. They're also incredibly sneaky and can end up in domestic fish tanks if you use marine coral and rocks. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far through our weird and wonderful journey through the history of predatory worms, then make sure to comment Fasilasuchus below, and I'll see you in the ARK. Take care.